The Lord be with you. Well, it works every time. So it was better than my screaming into the microphone, trust me. So, first of all, my name is Phyllis Rector, and I'm the chairperson of the Barnabas Legacy Society. And I just want to welcome you all. I'm frankly overwhelmed that there's so many people here, and I'm glad that they're set up with so many tables so we can everyone can be accommodated. We're going to start our program. As Reverend Dan said this morning, program is sponsored by the Barnabas Legacy Society and Pastoral Care. And Reverend Jennifer is going to pray for us, pray for our meeting, talk a little bit about spiritual aspects and biblical aspects of legacy, and then we can turn it over to Lou Comas, who will talk a little bit about Barnabas Legacy Society, but mostly about legacy. Reverend.
Thank you, Phyllis. Let us pray. God of grace, God of abundance, we thank you for all that we have. We give thanks knowing that you are the one who has given it to us. Help us to trust that there will always be more available so that we will be generous in giving away what we have. In your Son's name, amen. Well, good morning. Good afternoon. Wait. Good morning. That's right. It's afternoon somewhere, but I was really glad that Phyllis asked me to speak because I feel strongly about the idea that legacy is a big concept. It's how do you want to be remembered? And if you think about what would you hope that people would say about you? That covers a lot of ground. Your legacy can be that you are kind. Your legacy could be that you are the one that listens when other people need to talk. Your legacy could be the one that you're the one who offers healing in times of need or food when people are hungry. There's a lot of things that legacy covers. So I encourage you, especially when we consider legacy in terms of pastoral care, to think about what you give to other people. When you meet somebody that you don't know, what do you give to them? And it's not necessarily something that's tangible. When you meet up with your family members that sometimes frustrate you, what do you give to them? When you meet with your coworkers who you know they're not doing as good of a job as they could be, what do you give to them? Your legacy is about what you are giving. And based on what you give, that is how you will be remembered. So, I pray that we do all trust that we have an abundance of resources so that we will know that we will be okay even when we give things away. Because nothing that we have was meant to be kept. It was always meant to be given to someone else. And I think, Lou, you're next.
Good morning, and it still is, by the way. Okay, we're here with the Barnabas Legacy Society. What is the Barnabas Legacy Society? It's a group of members who have done two things. One, left something to St. Barnabas in your estate plan, and two, told us about it. That's all it takes. By the way, when you tell us about it, you don't have to say how much, what it is, anything else. Then how you do it, it can be in a will, in a trust, an IRA, a beneficiary deed, an insurance policy, and lots of other ways. Just call the church office, tell them that you've remembered St. Barnabas in your estate plan, and just say, I'd like to become a member of the Barnabas Legacy Society. And that'll do it. Society members are encouraged to consult with other people in the Legacy Society, especially those on the committee, which consists of clergy, attorneys, accountants, investment advisors, and others experienced in creating legacies. So what do Legacy Society members do? Well, one thing is we party. The members of the Legacy Society Committee sponsor several luncheons every year for members to gather and hear presentations by experts on various aspects of planning, updating, and fine-tuning their legacies. We talk about the latest ideas on how to provide for your families, about recent changes in tax laws. Ooh, that's exciting. And even how to pass on your values to your family and friends. All of which makes us wonder, what is legacy about? What does it mean? Well, Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary defines legacy quite simply. It's something coming from an ancestor or a predecessor. I didn't mention money, I didn't mention things, and I didn't mention stuff. I didn't mention wills, I didn't mention estate plans. So your legacy, could it include your values and your attitudes, or things you have said, what you've done, your beliefs? Of course, your legacies include all of these things. And that's why the Legacy Society meets regularly to discuss any and all of them. But now hear this. You don't have to be a Legacy Society member to come to our luncheons. Member? If you're not a member, you're still here, right? It's free. That's a kind of a backward legacy. All of you, including non-members, were invited to join us today for lunch. All you need to join our meetings in the future is having an interest in and a curiosity about the legacy subjects we're discussing. In a few minutes, Scott Statham is going to talk about a legacy from the other side. I'm going to talk about legacy giving, leaving a legacy. Scott's going to talk about what it's like to be on the other side of a legacy, maybe or not. Then Tom Dietrich's going to talk about all that lawyer stuff, about what kind of documents you ought to think about, who ought to be doing things like making wills, that sort of thing. But first, I'd like to try to unlock an awareness of the concept of legacy, especially non-monetary legacies for each of you. Think of someone who left you fond memories or with a lesson you still remember. How about a teacher, a coach, a scoutmaster, a clergy person, a boss, an aunt or uncle, a parent or grandparent? A couple of examples. When I was in school in college at Antioch, I had a professor named Mickey McCleary. He's kind of a weird guy. He would always say, you know, if you want to get the right question, you gotta ask the right answers. I always remember that. When many, many years ago, when our kids were young, here at St. Barnabas, they were in the youth program, and when the time came, they both joined the scout troop here at St. Barnabas, Troop 644. They grew up in that troop. That troop was led by a guy named Chris Lawrence, now gone, but a tremendous legacy around here. He was a scoutmaster for probably 25 years. He and we graduated some 100 or more Eagle Scouts. Now there's a legacy. When I was a brand new, wet behind the ears lawyer in New York, I was in a big firm led by a guy named Arthur Dean. He was a curmudgeon for sure. And you never talk to Arthur, Mr. Dean. You you did your research, you handed it to the next person up the line, and then you someday heard whether or not he even cared. Well, that time it didn't, my first project didn't work that way. The person right above me wasn't available. And so I got the word, you go see Arthur. And so I went up, and I was a little weak-kneed, I have to admit, because you just don't talk to, I won't say God here, but that was close. And he said, I read your report, it's pretty good. Got anything to say? I said, well, sir, I just want you to know it was a good subject, and I did the very best I could. And he just looked at me and said, young man, nothing but your best is ever good enough. I remember that. My wife may tell you I don't always get there, but okay, ask yourself now, what can I pass along to somebody, something I learned in school, on a job, or a hobby? In the future, we hope to have presentations by clergy and others who deal with other non-monetary related types of legacies. Please come to our lunches and listen and talk to other people about it. And now, Scott, tell us about the other side of legacy.
I guess now it is afternoon. So my name is Scott Statham, and okay. People usually do not have a hard time hearing me. So I am also a lawyer, but I am not a wills lawyer or a trust lawyer. I'm just a sore back lawyer. And my comments really aren't addressed to Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or folks with enormous estates that have elaborate, complicated plans to deal with wealth transfer and tax protection. I want to share with you guys 5 things I learned when both my parents passed away. I lost my dad in 2014, my mom in 2021. My brother and I are both lawyers, and so my parents' vision of how to deal with legacy is both the boys are lawyers, we're not going to worry about it. God bless them. Happily, my brother and I get along pretty well together. And so their estate plan was real simple, right? Whatever one of them passed first, the other one got everything. And when that one passed, my brother and I had to figure out how to sort it out. And so I learned 5 lessons from going through that process. And these comments are really just my own. These don't really reflect the church or the clergy or even, for that matter, the Legacy Society. But one thing I learned is money is easy and stuff is hard, right? I mean, money is easy for siblings to divide up. Usually a will is going to give some guidance about how to deal with that kind of thing, but treasured possessions, small family businesses, that stuff is hard. And we worked through it. I mean, we had a small family farm. It was a non-revenue producing, but very significant emotional asset. We didn't have a clue what my dad or my mom wanted us to do with that. We knew we couldn't really keep it because I live here, my brother lives in Houston, but some guidance from my parents about what they wanted to see done to that kind of asset would have made the kids' job, and by kid, I mean, we're both 60, right? It's not like we're just learning. It would have really helped. And I mean, Cynthia walked that journey with me, and it was hard. Because you really are trying to divine an intent that they never articulated, they never expressed. My mom never told my brother or me where she wanted to live, right? She lived on the farm as long as she could after my dad passed, but she never really said, when the time comes that I can't really be out here in the boonies by myself, boys, this is what I want to do. Well, my brother and I didn't really see eye to eye on whether mom would be better off out here, whether it should be better off closer to my brother. That was a difficult sort of negotiation over a period of years with my mom. And if she, when she still had her marbles, had expressed a preference, it would have made my job and my brother's job easier and a lot less like a negotiation. Eventually, she ended up here. Another conversation we never have but should have is, how did she want to be taken care of when she couldn't take care of herself? Did she want, to be in our home with us but with assistance? Did she want to be in community with a bunch of other folks? We didn't get a lot of help with that decision either. And so it was another example of some guidance would have been really helpful. Because that's as all of us know that have an elderly parent, an aunt, an uncle, that's a difficult, painful process of self-examination. Neither parent told us anything about how to divide, not just like the family business, but like just the clutter, right? What did they want to go to which grandkid? Who knows? I mean, it kind of turned into a free-for-all. We just all kind of went in there together, and whoever got there first kind of got their pick of just the stuff. And so a lesson I learned is it really helps the folks that have to go to the house afterwards and kind of deal with that kind of stuff if you give them some guidance. And finally, neither one of my parents, who were not religious people, ever thought about sitting down with somebody like Jennifer and saying, let's talk about kind of what I want my kind of end of life celebration to look like. And so they left my brother and me trying to fill in those gaps. And, that's hard on people at that moment in life, and some guidance. And I see Susie nodding. I mean, she could probably talk about this a lot better than I could. So what did I do, having learned these 5 lessons, right? After both my parents were gone, I just wrote a letter to Cynthia and my kids. I mean, our will was okay. My kids are adults. And so this wasn't so much about how do you preserve the money. This was really about, here's things you might need to know. Like, where are the papers that matter? Who's the financial advisor? Who do you go to for a real estate transaction involving the assets? And, what do I want if, you guys are having to make these kinds of decisions? So I guess my message is legacy isn't really about who you want to get the money, right? A big part of legacy is thinking about your kids or your loved ones, and what can we do today to make their tomorrow a little less difficult in terms of knowing what to do. Anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to Tom, who can talk more about the tools.
I'm glad he had stories because I got more. So I've done a lot of estate plans in my career, not as many as Lou, but almost as many. And the objective is clarity and predictability. That's the objective. How do we implement that? We implement that through documents that we prepare that hopefully are pretty comprehensive. That includes your last will and testament. Today's wills, I'd say the big bulk of wills, say nothing other than put it in the trust. The whole purpose is to pour over everything into the trust, and then the trust becomes the primary document through which you administer the estate. A trust is the second document. That's the big document in most people's estate plan today. But that's not all there is. You need a power of attorney. Why is that? Because a durable power of attorney addresses what happens before you die, but you can't speak for yourself. And that's true on 2 different subjects: financial issues, durable power of attorney, and healthcare issues. Healthcare power of attorney. Almost all estate plans include every one of those. In the last 20 years, I'd say 30 years maybe, the last document that is awfully important is a living will. If I have a terminal condition, I'm in a persistent vegetative state, in other words, end-of-life circumstances, people express their desires of what they wish to have happen. Should you unplug or not unplug? What do I wish? Do I wish to be have comfort care or not have comfort care? And all of those are awkward decisions for family to make without guidance. And hence why we have a document that tells them this is what we're trying to accomplish. Some of these are almost like forms. Honest to Pete, living wills today are, I don't know that I've done a custom living will in a long time, but because end of life, either people want that or they don't. They either want to get unplugged or they do not want to get unplugged. And I've had people with equally strong feelings on both sides of that. It's okay. But clarity demands that somebody articulate the intended objective. Okay. So what are the things, let's assume that you actually wanted to go to your estate plan, what would you need to think about? Here's what you're going to discuss. All lawyers are the same. We all ask the same questions. What are your assets? What are your liabilities? Are you familiar with taxes? Taxes are going to be a big part of your estate plan, whether you like that or not. And there's both income taxes and estate taxes. And you say, wait a minute, we're talking about death here. What do you mean income taxes? It's not April 15th. No, but a little tip here is, let's assume you buy a piece of land. You pay $100 for it. At the time you die, it's worth $1,000. Had you sold the piece of land, you would have had to, in the course of your life, you would have paid an income tax, probably capital gain, on the appreciation, that $900 in my example. But in America, and in Arizona in particular, you get a basis adjustment at death. Fancy way of saying when you inherited that land, you get it at its full fair market value. You can go sell it as the recipient and not pay any income tax. Do you have any idea how much time is spent designing estate plans to take advantage of that income tax rule? It's a staggering amount of time is invested in the idea of structuring it to where we get basis adjustment, and in today's world, basis adjustment at first death, husband and wife, and then basis adjustment again at second death. So, 2 different times wipe out income tax. In today's world, the exemption from estate tax is husband and wife is $26 million. That doesn't affect very many people, less than 1%. So, the things you're going to discuss are those very things: your assets, your taxes, income tax issues, and then if you have children, if they're minor children, who's going to raise them? What's the context of that? What are some directions that might assist the people as they try to raise the children? And then for a lot of people, if you own a business or something like that, that raises other issues. The notion of succession, of ownership, and management has to be addressed. Lou did not mention this, but I thought, what are the things, how do you go find a lawyer? By the way, I'm not soliciting, neither's Lou, we're retired. But how do you go find the right lawyer for you? And I'd said, I'd choose somebody that makes estate planning a major part of their practice. bar designations, state bar designations like board certified or super lawyers or things like those kinds of designations, helpful to tell you that somebody else thinks they're good. You might want to ask how long they've practiced and have they done a lot of estate plans. In the subtle arena, there's actually a company that does nothing but rate lawyers. Martindale Hubbell, that's all they do is rate lawyers. And lawyers, they rate them, if at all. Most lawyers are not rated, but if they are rated, they're rated AV, BV, or CV. So, not IV, that's right. AV-rated lawyers are the top of that heap. It's far less than 1% of the lawyers. So AV, you might want to look for a lawyer that's an AV-rated lawyer. If you're not comfortable with your lawyer, then go find somebody you are comfortable with. Do they gather information? Do you feel heard? Do they seem engaged? Can you communicate well with them? Do you get to results? Are these people finding roadblocks or finding solutions? There are plenty of lawyers that are just content just to stay with roadblocks. Lou and I had a quick conversation, and I found it amusing. Why do people not have an estate plan? My number one list on the list was fear. People say, if I do an estate plan, I'll go die, just surely. If I do the will, it's all over. I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a process and that it's customized and often revised many times over the course of a lifetime. And last, they've not thought about legacy. Well, I'm going to finish my comments with notions about legacy. Quite accurately, everybody here has mentioned that legacy is not just money. I was about a 3-year lawyer. I'm in West Texas, and gal dies. Her name was Alpha. Alpha died, had a 13,000-acre ranch. One water well on a 13,000-acre ranch. Makes it kind of unfit for raising cattle or planting anything anywhere. Thank goodness for those pump jacks going up and down pumping the oil out all over the 13,000-acre ranch. She had lots of money. She had a lot of things. She was a hoarder. She died. The bank got a bank got appointed the executor because she didn't have a will. I'd never seen a hoarding home in my life. I'd never heard of hoarding back then. It was a shocker. And come to find out, she had 5 brothers and sisters. They were all estranged. What a shock. They all showed up at the bank's conference room. They all had fond memories of Alpha by that time. And to my left was a woman in her mid-50s, maybe early 60s. Alpha died at like 79 or 80 or so. And all of a sudden, as we're sitting there, all these people are sitting around a table, and she looks across at her brother-in-law down the way and says, "What did you say? What did you call me?" Room got quiet. Imagine our amazement when they got into a fist fight. In the center of the conference room table, they climbed up there and got in a fist fight. So let's just say this family was not good at legacy, and that the legacy was chaos. That particular matter took almost 2 years to resolve. Lots of money wasted. Lots of money wasted. And at the end, they all still hated each other. They took their share and left. That was a legacy. The opposite end of the spectrum. I got to deal with a lot of farm and ranch families all across the Southwest, particularly in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. That's because of a fella in Dallas, Texas, who took a shine to me and brought me into all kinds of files. I'd grown up in rural South Texas. We had horses. I rode rodeo, all that kind of stuff. And so it fit in well. And I got a chance to go out and see families do things the right way. So we're on a ranch. Fella had a big ranch, and second or third generation. He had 4 boys, all boys, and one of them was going to run the ranch, clearly. He was in charge. The other 3 all had gone to college. I asked him about the boys, and I said, why did Bob not go to college? That's not his real name, by the way, but I said, why did Bob not go to college? And he said, oh, he smiled. He said, Bob's a great manager of the ranch, and everybody in the family knows it. But the highest and best college he'd ever go to would be welding college, because he has no intellectual ability whatsoever. But he manages people well, and he manages things well. So here's a family where a son is clearly favored to manage this enormous ranch. And everybody agreed that was the right thing. He was paid handsomely for doing it, and there was not a single bobble in that file. No disputes. About 2 years ago, I had a family here in Phoenix, and they owned a company. It was a very successful company, and their daughter worked there, and she had a kind of a no-name position, but regardless, their sons worked there, multiple sons, and they were now running the business. The sons were. So I'm sitting in this conference room, beautiful day. I'd met with them twice. We seemed to be making no progress whatsoever, which seemed odd because that didn't happen often. And I noticed that the husband and the wife, they didn't join in and talk about things in a common way. She had run the kind of the back office of the company, and he was the salesman kind of character. It was an interesting couple. And they are unable to get their estate plan written. Seriously, the wills, they didn't have an estate plan. They'd been at this for months. And they came to see me. They'd been at it for months, been through 2 or 3 lawyers. And I sat there and watched them, and I thought, there is something going on here. I wonder what this is. I was asking questions, and eventually I stumbled on the right question. And it was, why is your daughter not also an owner? Can you tell me a little bit about that? How did that come to be? Husband had his answer. Started talking right away. I noticed wife looked down. Was not interested in sharing in those thoughts. And seizing that opportunity, I started asking more questions. Turns out, husband had pretty much unilaterally made the decision of what to do. Turns out the daughter was kind of glue within the family, but not a demanding person by nature. And I knew I was on the right path because I asked her a question, and I said, tell me about how you felt when you made the decision to just give things to the boys. And she started weeping. And the look on the husband's face suggested he did not realize what he had done. That's actually a great story because they managed to resolve and figure out a way to make that work and come out with a good outcome. I'm not so sure that we were actually in a couples therapy rather than doing an estate plan. But I share all of these to be examples of legacy. Chaos in one instance. Resolution in another instance. The transfer of values, one generation to another. Creating opportunities for people to be the most they can be. Last, I'll share, I recently retired, and as I did so, I shared the story at that retirement party of Stanley P. Wilson. Stanley P. Wilson was a giant in West Texas. Brilliant lawyer, great litigator. Goodness sakes, great litigator. American College of Trial Trusted Estate Lawyers and the American College of Trial Lawyers. How often does that happen? I was a young puppy lawyer, about a year out of school, and he would sit down with me and ask me questions. I had zero answers. The questions he had asked, I would have never thought of those things. But he kept talking to me, and he kept asking questions. One night he asked me a question, and I couldn't answer the question. It was a technical question, and he sat down and explained to me why this was important, and then gave me about a 45-minute discussion about what it was. I realized he already knew the answer to the question before he posed it. But he spent that time that night, and we stayed and talked till 10:30 at night. It's been 40 some odd years. I'm still telling the story. What was his legacy? I would that we could all do better at that. But if you don't have your will and your trust and things done, go get that done. Nobody's going to die. And yet, at the end, everybody does die. So you might want to address those things and make clarity your hallmark, what you measure by.
Don't forget, we get eternal.
There you go. Lou, come.
Tish, some lawyers are still trying to deal with that, by the way. Okay, a couple things to wrap up. First of all, can you be in front of the microphone? Okay. Tom was talking about a lot of money wasted when people didn't get it done right. It's not all bad news because most of the money wasted is given to lawyers. So.
Rest my case, Your Honor.
When you're hiring an attorney, by the way, always ask, how do you bill? And can you give me an estimate, either now or at the end of our first meeting, about what it might cost me? That's a fair thing to ask, and you should. I did this estate planning and probate stuff for 50 years. You'd think I'd get it right, but I've just now called a meeting of my kids and my wife, a family meeting, to talk about our estate plan. I'm going to give them a copy of it, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to offer to answer questions. Why didn't I do it earlier? Well, I kind of figured they didn't care. They might not be interested. They had other things to do. Don't end up like Scott did. We're going to talk about it. And one more thing about legacy. Everybody vote.
So first of all, thank you to our team who did the presentation, but I also want to ask if there are any questions, because we've got expertise right here that we can benefit from. And frankly, I'll kick it off because I have a couple of questions. Which is the first is that for the estate planners in the group, so do I have to hire a lawyer to do a simple will? That's number one. Second of all, I mean, there's plenty of stuff on the internet, right? Can't you feel if it's most of it is a form, can't we just do it that way? And what are the pros and cons depending on how you want to structure things? My personal question, because I have an estate plan, is if you have a durable power of attorney and you have a healthcare power of attorney, and I've told the kids, as we have, what our plan is for pulling the plug, so to speak, and for going into, post-compost care and all that kind of thing. My question is, do I need a living will? So I'm going to actually turn this over, bring you the mic, or come up and talk through the microphone. So take your pick.
Everybody needs a living will. Everybody. If you're alive, you need a living will. I hope that was clear.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go home and check, okay?
What was the other question?
Do you need a lawyer if you don't have, issues, okay? I mean, the other question is a guardian, if you've got young children or you've got grandchildren, is this something that we should, as parents, be talking to our children? Do they have a will? Because maybe they don't have any assets to speak of. My daughter doesn't even own a house, but on the other hand, it's for kids with parents with kids, probably the most important decision is who's going to take care of the kids, which is a guardian question. And sometimes, as in our case, the potential guardians were not all of them were very financially savvy. So we divided the financial part with one person and the guardian of the actual children to another person. So those are questions. Do we really need a will? Can we just fill out a document on the internet? A lawyer. Do we need a lawyer? Excuse me.
Okay, you go.
Do you need a lawyer to do a will? No, but be careful. Do you know what to say? Are you going to get it right? There are ways you can say things in a testamentary, general way. I'm not a lawyer. Notwithstanding that, you probably ought to talk to a lawyer about it. There on the internet you can find wills, you can find trusts, you can find lots of things. If you don't understand taxes, we heard about income taxes that are also a problem. If you don't understand that, you're probably going to get it wrong. So you probably ought to have some help with your estate plan. Any other questions? Right over here.
Well, so thank you. I know you can, and so can I, but we need to use the microphone because we have people on Zoom. And the other thing is this is being recorded so people that can go to our website, and hopefully even people that don't go to our website will, take a look. And so there you go.
And introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Wynn Maxwell. There's a great Episcopal planning book that they may have in the bookstore, but if they don't, we'll make sure that they do. But you fill it out and put everything you want, and it has the forms in the back. It has your living will, it has your power of attorney, it has everything. You can go to Amazon. But it has the scriptures, the songs. This is where I want my service. This is where I want to be, and a place for any notes. And it's just a little paperback book with maybe 25 pages in it. But it's a wonderful thing to have and fill out. And the second question is, what if you have more liabilities than you do assets?
In the probate court, we can handle that. It's a probate process is a way of getting rid of your problems. It's a way of passing things along. It also deals with your bills, what's left over, no matter whether it's plus or minus. Hope you don't have to go through that, but there is a way to handle it. You do not leave your debts to your children. If you do, you're a rotten parent. So. Anybody else?
So Pamela Bell, Deacon, Jennifer Tucker, Reverend. We want to make sure that you all know that clergy is always available to sit down and walk through your final ceremony, your final resting memorial, celebration of life, whatever you want to call it. But we are willing to sit there and walk with you, make decisions, we write it out, and then we keep it here in the vault, so to speak, so that when the time comes, we've got your wishes. And can I just say, it is the greatest gift that you can give your children. Because we're churched, and most of our kids are not churched, and they want to do it right, but they don't know what to do. So take that, take the opportunity to come see Jennifer, myself, Susie, any of us, Dan, and we'd be happy to go through it with you. It'd be a good thing and a great gift.
So I make two comments. Number one, that gift to your children is part of your legacy. Isn't that important for them to know, in your words, what you'd like? The second thing is that a few years ago when the Barnabas Legacy Society was doing these programs, the most popular one that we did was the one that was plan your own memorial service. Because then you could hear from fellow parishioners about what they were interested in and hear from our clergy about things that you might want to consider. So we're trying to get one of those scheduled for the spring, but as many of you know, the St. Barnabas calendar is very full. So keep praying for us.
Okay, anybody else? Right over here.
This probably sounds awful, I should know this, but I hear first you should have a will, and then I hear no, you should have a trust. What should you have? Or does it depend on the state you live in?
The way your estate is handled is under the laws of the state you live in when you die. So that can change. But it doesn't really matter which state you die in, the same kinds of things are going to control. If you have a trust, you will have a will, because the will says it's called a pour over will, and it pours over from your estate to your trust. It puts everything in the trust, which governs the way your estate's handled. So you're probably going to have both. It's a good thing to have a trust, we think. First of all, there are fees involved. But it's a good thing to have a trust because, in your trust, you kind of say somewhere, when I get goofy, I want my estate handled this way while I'm still alive. That's something you can do in a trust. You can't do that in a will. A will doesn't govern while you're alive, but your trust does. So it's a good thing to have a trust. Does that help? Okay, we're going to do this again. Not the same thing, but we're going to talk again about legacies and how you preserve them and how you do them. Watch for free lunches in the future. We'll be talking about all this kind of stuff again, usually in more detail. If you have an IRA, remember that you may have to do something by the end of the year. That's our secret, okay?
So thank you for all of you for coming. If you are a member, or if you have put St. Barnabas in your estate plan and you haven't told the office, please do tell the office, because we're going to have a celebration luncheon in early February for people who have self-identified that they're part of the Barnabas Legacy Society. The next program, and we're still working on the format, is April 6th. Unless I can squeeze one more into that calendar, Reverend Jennifer. Okay, well, it's actually Robert who really said he wanted to do this, so let me go bend his arm when he gets back. So, thank you.
Thank you.